I grew up on a great lake, Lake Ontario. But I've always thought of lakes as kind of ho-hum. Oceans are where the action is. Oceans have sharks and whales and swallow monstrous ships like the Titanic. Meanwhile, lakes have fishermen and day drinkers on pontoon boats. But I've been wrong all these years. In this episode of El Camino, we ride north to Algoma, to the great lake that's clearly superior to all the others. El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Importations TBO, distributor of power sports parts and accessories. And by GP Bikes, Canada's power sports authority. Welcome to El Camino. Every motorcyclist has a very individual idea of what constitutes an epic ride. For some, distance is the thing, whether it's to the East Coast, the West Coast, or to the far north. For others, those with children or with demanding jobs, a 3-day weekend is in itself epic. I know a surgeon with young twins, and if he can squeeze in a Thursday night ride to a coffee shop, he feels as if he's trekked to Patagonia. Now, I have my own methodology to define epic. And this past summer, it began with a song. Yes, a song. Growing up on the shores of Lake Ontario, I wouldn't have applied the word majestic to the lake at my doorstep. It's just a lake. To my adolescent mind, lakes were fishermen in 12-foot aluminum boats, hooligans on jet skis, or pontoon boats jammed with drunks. Oceans. Now, oceans had all the action. Sharks and whales. Now, that's a legacy. Next to an ocean, a lake is nothing more than what? Than a deep puddle. And then I heard the song. That song. And everything changed. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, though never a favorite then or now, wormed its way into my consciousness. Released in 1976, the Gordon Lightfoot epic song was everywhere when I was a boy. This despite the fact that the song goes on and on and on. For an astounding 12 verses, with the chorus repeated only twice. For a solid year, from the backseat of my parents' Maverick, or from every storm my mother dragged me into, I heard over and over about a ship sinking in Lake Superior. There were lines from the song that I couldn't shake, like when the ship's cook said to the crew, "Fellas, it's too rough to feed you," followed by, "Fellas, it's been good to know you," and then this, "Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?" Cue the chills. Even humble Lake Ontario warrants a mention in the song, which made me think, could the Great Lakes actually be great? So I phoned my pal Jennifer Carrier, asked her to find a kitchen sink, borrowed a supertanker, Honda's Goldwing, and for the first time ever headed out from southern Ontario to the undisputed heavyweight of the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, to see what inspired Lightfoot to write, "The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy." More chills. But as we roll north, the weather is anything but gloomy. It's a glorious late August day with just a hint of the upcoming fall to cut the heat down to size. Onward we go, past Parry Sound and the French River Provincial Park. At Sudbury, we turn west and work our way to the Algoma region in the first overnight of the trip, the blink and you'll miss it town of Thessalon. It's the perfect base camp to explore Lake Superior. Thessalon is significant because it's at the foot of Route 129, and after breakfast the next morning we head up the 129 to meet the 101. Now, there was a time I've rolled my eyes at the prospect of riding a Goldwing on a twisty road. I'd have thought of it as a waste. Far better to have something more agile, like a sport bike or a sport touring bike or even an adventure touring bike. Anything but a Goldwing. And then, years ago now, I rode a Goldwing and had to swallow my words. The Goldwing is a revelation. I can't believe I'm saying that. Yes, it's huge, though it's less huge than it used to be. But the wing moves with a lightness and grace that belies its size. I do not know how they did it. Now, you still need to be careful when you're riding at a walking pace, and wiggling it in and out of parking spots is best done with an airport ground support crew. But get the wing beyond second gear, and it's a whole new dancing partner. Now, you Goldwingers out there are going to have to forgive this recollection. But as we begin to carve turn after turn on Route 29 with speed and precision, I think back to a dancing partner I had long ago. Now, when I was in high school, a friend and her parents would drag me along to an old barn where every Saturday night a band played. It was hardcore, old-fashioned country music. I love it now, but at the time, I couldn't stand it. But when you're a teenager with a crush on a girl, you'll do anything to make inroads. My goal was to keep my head down and make it through the evening, but it didn't work that way. At the barn dance, everyone danced. I mean, everyone. Now, one Saturday night, a very substantial woman approached me at the barn dance. She didn't say anything. She just grabbed my sleeve and yanked me onto the dance floor. I was horrified. And then this woman floated across the floor like a human hovercraft. She was a miracle of physics, just like the Goldwing. The latest Goldwing is a slightly different take on the formula. And as one relatively inexperienced with Goldwings, it still looks like a very large motorcycle to me, though considerably smaller than a wing from 20 years ago. Something we discovered at a roadside stop near the junction of routes 129 and 101, when we parked next to a man riding a 2003 Goldwing. This man didn't agree to be filmed, but I gotta tell you about him. Next to his Goldwing, the 2023 Goldwing that we're on shrinks to midsize. The man, no name was offered and I certainly wasn't going to ask, looks the new wing up and down and calls it a fashion bike. Now, I choke on my energy bar. What do you mean by that, I ask. Have a look for yourself, he says, popping his top case open. Inside is a dizzying array of junk. He's got a second helmet, an air compressor, enough hand tools to build an off-grid cabin, and a deflated air mattress. Now, what air mattress wouldn't be deflated living in that condition? But for those of us not on the way to the construction site, the current Goldwing makes for a far better motorcycle. This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Welcome back to El Camino. Continuing west on Route 101, we marvel at the beauty of the northern forests. Deep, dark, cool and calm. Late in the afternoon, we pull into the town of Wawa for the night, grab our rooms, some food, say goodnight, and sleep. Hard. There's nothing like a motorcycle to bring sleep to even the most committed insomniac. But before we move on, let's take a moment for some rudimentary geography review. What my daughter would call a teaching moment, and I don't mean that in a pleasant way. Jennifer, despite growing up and living in the north, was shocked to learn that Sault Ste. Marie is a twinned city. There's Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And wouldn't you know it, they're just across the river from each other. Jennifer also couldn't find us on a map. When I asked her what on earth she'd been doing rather than paying attention in high school geography class, she looked at me and said, well, geography is stupid. I can't argue that. Wawa is worth visiting just to say you've seen the geese, and you have to do cheesy photos, it's mandatory, and to say the word Wawa, and then to go home and tell everyone you've been to Wawa. Wawa is second only to Chibougamau as the greatest town name in the country. The ultimate getaway? Forget Paris to Peking. Wawa to Chibougamau. Heading south the next morning on Highway 17 from Wawa, I can't stop saying it, Wawa, we ride through Lake Superior Provincial Park. It's an amazing road. Then, just north of Algoma Bay, the view to Lake Superior opens. It's better than beautiful. It's breathtaking. The color of the water, the blue-black of a perfect cloudless sky, the hills, the rocks. It was as if we'd been transported to the coast of the Mediterranean. But no, that's not right. Lake Superior is as Canadian as Gordon Lightfoot himself. Lightfoot, in his love of hockey, but mostly in his fondness for a stiff drink, is like every one of my uncles. Now, had my uncles been talented songwriters. And then I thought of all the crews on all the ships, including, of course, the Edmund Fitzgerald, who died in these waters. And I thought back to what I'd read over breakfast about Lake Superior, that it's actually not a lake at all, but an inland sea, though I have absolutely no idea what that means. And that it's so large that all of the other Great Lakes will fit inside of Superior. But of all Superior's factoids, this is the one that offers the most mystery. It takes 2 centuries for all of the water in the lake to replace itself. There's water in Lake Superior older than the country of Canada itself. Past glorious rock cuts, foaming surf and tide pools, we carry on. Past bays so pristine they look like they've never been touched by man. At a rest stop, we bump into 2 more men on Goldwings. They're much friendlier than the last Goldwing man we talked to. And they're remarkably patient when I ask them really dumb questions, like this. Why do you ride a Goldwing? Or this one. Do you find the bike too big? Now, let's start at the top. Every idiot knows you ride a Goldwing because it's absurdly comfortable. I own furniture, and I don't mean cheap stuff from IKEA, that isn't nearly as comfortable as the seat in the Goldwing. A seat that's like sinking into warm fudge. I take that back. When the original Goldwing was being developed back in the 1970s, Honda engineers chased test riders as they rode through the desert. After 500 miles, the test riders were pulled to the side of the road and the engineers would drill them with question after question after question about, how their butts felt. Were they sufficiently supported? Did they stay cool? Or did their sit bones cry out in agony? If there was a problem, a fix was devised, more foam, less foamy foam, firmer foam, and test riders would begin again for another 500 miles to test the seat. Because when you get right down to it, a Goldwing at its core is nothing more than a 900-pound device concocted to do little more than hold a comfortable seat about this high off the ground. It sounds simple, but it's not. Motorcycles are not, by nature, comfortable vehicles. Would you open the hood on a 77 Impala, sit in the air cleaner, and go for a drive? Most wouldn't. If you would, reach out. I'd like to talk, and you need to talk. But the point is this. Sitting on what is essentially a bar stool, motorcycle seat, and straddling an engine is not a recipe for comfort. If it was, the Impala would have 1 more row of seating up front. What the Goldwing has accomplished is nothing short of a miracle on the magnitude of ultra suede. Sunny, warm, and perfect. Jen and I wade out through chilling waters to a sandbar where we throw a frisbee until our shoulders ache and our feet are numb. In fact, why don't we take a little frisbee break right now?
On the road with a motorbike, hanging around between the mountains, coast to coast, you know how to drive. Dragonflies around the sunset, taxi boat, where's left behind? Rainbow rain in every color, we go around the island. What do you mean it's a one way? We're in the middle of nowhere.
That was embarrassing. This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Welcome back to El Camino. One of the things I love about travel are the oddities you find alongside the road, like this, the self-proclaimed world's smallest record shop. They have everything one could ever need. Fine fashion, I think the hat is perfect, but Jen believes otherwise. And an owner with a quirky yet exquisite taste in music. Oddly enough, just about like mine. Then this man and I become locked in a conversation about, well, it may have sounded mostly about nothing, but to us it was a bonding exercise. We talk about the do-it-yourself ethos of the early punk rock movement, and we share our love for Detroit garage rockers, the MC5. And then we talk fishing, yet another topic I know nothing about. And in an Oscar-worthy performance, Jen is kind enough not to look at us like we're self-indulgent idiots. Though later she did make a comment, essentially to that effect. Back on the bike, we continue southbound through Jones Landing and Harmony Beach, eventually reaching Sault Ste. Marie, the one in Ontario. It's just across the river from the one in Michigan. If you've watched El Camino in the past, you've likely become irked at my tendency to go on and on about coffee. I lean towards the kind of independent shops where the baristas are heavily tattooed and generally pretty unfriendly. But to show I have range, we pull into a Starbucks. When I need coffee, I need coffee. I don't chit-chat at the counter, and I certainly don't ask the server if they're having a nice day. Imagine my frustration when we find the doors to Starbucks locked. There's a notice taped up, which says something to the effect that they can't find enough staff to work for minimum wage while dealing with people like me. Turns out that the drive-thru is open. That'll work. We walk up to the speaker and place an order they won't accept. I ask why. "You're not driving, sir," she says. I hate it when they call you sir. "Yes, I know," I say back. "We're on a motorcycle." "No, you're not," she says. "You're on foot," which is clever, I'll give her that. But when you need coffee, clever is not valued currency. I ask what the problem is. "Insurance," she says. "It's dangerous to walk through a drive-thru." Were I not a patient man, I'd have said that riding a Goldwing 2-up through a drive-thru is indeed more perilous than walking through a drive-thru. But I know when I'm beat. I give up, ride through the drive-thru. But to show you that my punk rock roots are still alive and well, we did it without helmets. The man is never going to tell me what to do. One more thing. Don't rush through Sault Ste. Marie to get home. I'd suggest the Bush Plane Museum. It's right downtown. It's as Canadian as a song that goes on and on and on about a ship that sank in the frigid waters of Lake Superior. But don't go alone. Take a friend. And then in exacting detail, talk about every last thing you notice on every last airplane. And if you don't know anything about airplanes, well, that's even better. People from Southern Ontario, like me, are often dismissive of the amenities available in the North. And by amenities, I mean food, good food, exceptionally good food. Earlier in the summer, I'd received a tip from a friend who traveled up this way. He suggested the restaurant named Peace as a worthy destination. We went without expectation. We were blown away. I did not expect to find an Asian fusion restaurant in Sault Ste. Marie. I had the mango salad and the Korean egg fried rice. But whatever you order, you're going to be impressed. This segment is brought to you by GP Bikes. Welcome back to El Camino. Disappointed. That's what we were the next morning when we had to leave the north for the south. The day begins sunny, warm, and perfect. I'm not going to ruin this fantasy by telling the truth, by telling you that the sun soon changed to cloud, and by the time we reached Sudbury, we were shivering, soaked, and the skies were as dark as it was that night the Edmund Fitzgerald succumbed to the waters of Superior. And I promise that's the last reference I'll ever make to the Edmund Fitzgerald. Unless you have any questions, then I'm happy to keep going. If you decide to retrace our steps yourself this summer, which I strongly encourage you to do, I'd suggest one of two routes. The first is to do what we did, with an inland trek and then a ride down the coast. As an alternative, you can ride up the coast of Superior, spend a night or two in Wawa, and then ride back south to Sault Ste. Marie. One's as good as the other. The only wrong move you can make is not to go at all. And I know you're far smarter than that. Thank you for watching El Camino. Clothing was provided by Importations TBO. El Camino has been brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Wherever life takes you, Best Western is there. AGV Helmets. Protect like a champion. And by Spring Toronto Motorcycle Super Show.